There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
I'm still trying to come off the energetic excitement and enthusiasm that came with Force Friday, so I'm more or less walking around like a 7-year-old again, as I'm enjoying the renewed vigor for anything Star Wars, but particularly toys, movies, what have you, because, come on, this is awesome and you know it. I'm just going to put this down so I can focus on the video, or else I will totally get distracted. I'll just put this over here for now. But this is going to stay. I'm Kylo Ren now. We're now in the double digits waiting for The Force Awakens, which makes me very, very excited, as I've had my countdown going as long as they've announced the movie. So today, I'm going to focus on something besides Force Awakens. The spin-off movies, or as we know them as the Star Wars anthology movies. Now, Lucasfilm has said that they're going to be doing the main trilogy, but there's going to be some other side movies, some spin-off movies. So far, we've got Rogue One confirmed, which is more or less about the Rebels stealing the Death Star plans, and we also have one about young Han Solo and what that is going to be like, the early days of your favorite smuggler. Now, for me, those sound great, but there's some 5 other stories that I would love to see eventually take place in a spin-off. For a spin-off? Whatever. 5 movies that I would love to see as an anthology film. First up, we have another smuggler. There's another scoundrel that I think would be better suited for a movie, and that is Lando. No, not Boba Fett. I think the aura of Boba Fett is not knowing his past, so the prequels kind of ruin that. Lando is more or less one of the more underrated characters that would be far more interesting as to how he came in control of the Bespin mining, I think it's mining colony, which wouldn't really make any sense because they're in the clouds, but how he became in charge of Bespin, why he's like the ruler of that, how he came from smuggler to like official governor or whatever his official title is. I think that story could be fascinating as to how he won everything. Then you could actually tie in Han Solo if you really wanted to. It could have a nice interconnectedness. Ooh, I like that. Interconnectedness. Yeah, I planned that. I totally planned that. It could probably take place in between episodes 4 and 5 if you really wanted to, or episodes in between episodes 3 and 4. Whichever, it really could fit into numerous different time slots. And I think Lando as a character would be fascinating for a standalone movie. At number 4, we have the Clone Troopers. So, in episode 3, all the Clone Troopers turned against their Jedi Masters after Order 66 was executed by Chancellor/Emperor Palpatine. What if they really didn't want to do that? Like, they are not robots. Yes, they are portrayed as robots in the prequels by some really stale acting, but technically, they're still humans. They're clones, but they're still humans. Well, if you really want to get in the sweaty nerd territory, they're Mandalorian. But they're still technically human, which makes me think they still have some human thoughts, some cognitive processes going on, and some real emotions. So what if they actually had some emotion when they had to kill their Jedi Masters? You could focus on one certain group that's like the best at what they do. Because we're getting a Suicide Squad movie, a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and those other Guardians of the Galaxy sequels, there's more reliance of a team dynamic with those films and then Avengers. I think it'd be interesting as you get these non-superpower beings in more of a military style. Have like the elite commandos, and then what happens when they're faced with the decision of execute Order 66. Do they still go with that, and what are the emotional repercussions of that? It'd be a very, very different take, and I think that could be fascinating to show more of the war side, because it is Star Wars. Now, we are getting that with Rogue One, as the director has said it's going to be more gritty and warlike, more akin to Saving Private Ryan than A New Hope, which I'm very fascinated by, and I think that style could fit very well into a Clone Troopers movie, one that I would very much like to see. At number 3, we have the Old Republic. Now, for the most part, the general knowledge of Star Wars is just in the timeline between episodes 1 and 6, Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi. But there's a whole massive universe that is Star Wars. It's more than the, let's just say for approximation's sake, the 60-year span between Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi. There's more to that. Take, for example, the Old Republic games. They were a widely popular franchise that takes place hundreds, if not thousands of years before Phantom Menace. And I think, frankly, it'd be kind of nice to take a dip away from what people expect. Anything Star Wars related, it all connects back to the Skywalker family, which makes sense because it's still their story. But if you want to show how big the universe is, you go completely away from that and show way, way back. Like have an army of Sith versus an army of Jedi back in the early days of basically either of their existence. Have very, very primitive Jedi and primitive Sith and show how the conflict first started between the two. Like, what happened? Why are there two sides of the Force? Without really explaining too much about the Force, because then you dip into midichlorian territory and you really just confuse everybody. I think the Old Republic would be a nice break from what we expect is just in the normal 1 through 6 timeline. It'd be different, but I think it would work. Plus, it would introduce the mainstream audience, not just the sweaty Star Wars nerds, to what the Old Republic is. And if it does well enough, you could set more movies in that time period. Maybe have an Old Republic trilogy. Just a thought. At number 2, we're going to go with another idea that comes from the world of games, except this game never came to fruition. I'm talking about a 1313 movie. Now, 1313 was a Star Wars game that was in production. There was even more or less a demo that was about to be released, but before 1313 was released, Disney bought Star Wars and they closed down LucasArts, which I still think is kind of a bad move on Disney's part, but I'm sure they have a plan somewhere. So this game was actually going to focus on more or less the underbelly of Coruscant, like where all the scum and villainy live. Like, it's where all the villains hang out, and it would have been basically the dark side of a bright city, and I think that would have been fascinating. There wouldn't have been any Jedi, to my knowledge, in this game, but it really would have focused a lot on bounty hunters. I wouldn't be surprised if Boba Fett made an appearance, maybe Bosk. It would have been darker than anything we would have expected, and I think that could be fascinating. Like, show something akin to Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. That was dark for the time of. You basically go to a gangster's house. I think I would like to see the criminal underbelly more often than we have. We've seen it in little glimpses throughout the 6 movies, and I wouldn't be surprised if it has some form of a presence in the new movies. And I think the whole criminal underbelly, with its large presence throughout the franchise, deserves its own movie, and I think that would be absolutely fascinating to watch, as you have a whole bunch of anti-heroes, and you don't really know who to trust or who to root for, but it could still be a fun ride. But obviously, without a doubt, the #1 Star Wars spin-off that needs to happen, and frankly has the highest probability of happening of all the spin-off movies that have not been announced yet, an Obi-Wan movie. Yes, we definitely need an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie more than anything else. And there's a very, very good chance that we could see it at some point. Now, it's no secret that the prequels really were not that great or even beloved by the fans. And even some of the actors involved spoke up about their distaste for the films. One of these actors was the one that played Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor, after Phantom Menace, got in a bit of hot water when he said that this wasn't what he signed up for. And the studio more or less asked him to clarify his statements. Which is unfortunate because Ewan McGregor was one of the few memorable characters from the prequels. He seemed to have a love for it, as his uncle actually was the actor that played Wedge Antilles, and he always talked about how he went to see Uncle Dennis at the movie theater. He's a huge Star Wars fan, and he actually tried in the prequels. Obi-Wan was still one of the few good characters, him and Darth Maul with that awesome battle, which that would be your setup. It could take place between episodes 3 and 4, the 19 years in between. It's basically Obi-Wan being a hermit. Maybe he goes on one more adventure, or maybe the Darth Maul that survived, which is canon because Clone Wars is canon. Darth Maul survives getting cut in half with his robo-legs, has managed to track down Obi-Wan, and he is ticked. They have one last epic fight, and basically really wears Obi-Wan down, reinforces to him that he really can't do this anymore. Plus, it'd be interesting to see Obi-Wan in this emotional state of knowing that he is one of, if not the only Jedi left to his knowledge, and how does he, like, physically and mentally cope with that side effect? Now, I think this spin-off has the best chance of coming to fruition for one reason, and that is because technically, Ewan McGregor is already working for the Star Wars company. to an extent. Now let me explain. So we're getting a live-action version of Beauty and the Beast coming. And Ewan McGregor was cast as Lumiere, the singing candlestick, which I think that is inspired casting. But follow the train of thought. Disney is the one making this Beauty and the Beast. Disney owns Star Wars. So I think, at least at some point, they have said, hey, Ewan, if we made an Obi-Wan movie, or if we wanted Obi-Wan back in some capacity, would you be down? Would you be down to come back? I have a hard time believing he would say no. He's gone on record saying, if they need an Obi-Wan, I'd prefer it be me. I don't want anybody else. I think Disney more or less owes Ewan McGregor a chance to be good, because the prequels were not, but yet he tried anyway. I think he's one of the only actors that I really would like to see come back from the prequels. Him and Darth Maul could just duke it out one more time, and he could finally kill Darth Maul and just have that storyline be done forever, and you could just see the trauma. Ewan McGregor really deserves to come back as Obi-Wan. We deserve a good Obi-Wan story. He's one of the most compelling characters from the prequels, and he really is by far a great character. And yes, some of my bias is showing, and I know that because I grew up as a huge Obi-Wan fan, and I still am. Ewan McGregor just freaking killed it. He was awesome. Now, what do you guys think? What spin-offs would you like to see that haven't actually been confirmed yet? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you see and you want to see more, subscribe to the channel, or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at 17 Movie Reviews. Stay sharp, movie guys and gals, and may the Force be with you.